Welcome back to Tit Talk, y'all. It's been a minute. This is our teamwork series where I have the honor of introducing you to all of the professionals that I get to work with on a regular basis. So get comfortable and let's talk tits. All right, everybody. So we're going to get started today with one of my all-time favorite body workers, Dr. Lauren Brim. So I'm actually going to throw it to her because I'd like her to give us a really good introduction into who she is and the work she does and why it matters for moms and babies.
Thank you. I love doing body work on babies. I believe every baby should have body work from birth, and body work involves touching a baby in a way that you allow the connective tissue and the bones and everything it connects to unwind from birth, and how restricted we can be in utero so that babies can breastfeed and they can be aligned and they can thrive.
It's awesome. Have you been doing this for a long time?
A bit.
Okay,
yeah.
tell me about
a little over 10
what got
years.
You here?
Yeah, so what got me here was being at a birth where a baby was pulled out by forceps. The forceps slipped. They went back in. Baby had an injury to the cranium, and I had heard about Dr. Barry Gillespie's work working with babies. I was already in alternative medicine, but back then there was no narrative that babies needed any work. It was like, oh, babies are fine, right? Like they come into the world and they're fine. Like they don't have any issues.
Canvas. Yeah.
It's us adults that have issues, you know, and maybe children have some stuff. So he was the first person I heard about who was helping babies. So naturally, he's who I studied with. Fast forward, back then the narrative was still, only the really injured babies need this. The brain injury babies need this. Not like, every baby needs this to breastfeed well or to, not have an asymmetrical head or whatnot. So even then I wasn't doing much of the work, but then when I became pregnant with my first daughter, more research about tongue ties was coming out and people were calling saying, hey, I heard body work is really important when there's a tongue tie. And so I feel I really learned about body work just like being thrown into the field. Like I had some tools and I wasn't even a mom yet. And I'm like, wait, what are these things? Like I didn't know what reflux was. I didn't know if like projectile vomiting of a baby, 4 feet across the room was normal. Yeah. But I was just kind of learning as I went. And now 3 children later and a decade later, I've got lots of experience. I feel very passionate about it, and I train other practitioners as well.
Yeah, which I think is it's how we met. Of course, I had the huge benefit for my practice to be able to take your training and learn under you. I think I said to you, and I still stand by this, that this should be something that every lactation consultant is required to learn how to do. Even, there's many cases where I will send people directly to you because of all the moving parts. I may not really have the time to focus on the body work, but even just a few minutes of being able to get that baby, any baby, a little bit of grounding, helping mom get a little bit of grounding can go a really long way.
Oh yeah, you can adjust one bone and open up a maxilla or adjust an occiput or downregulate a nervous system through some touch. And babies are so malleable. I describe them as sponges. So they'll soak up all the emotions in the environment, but they'll also release them just as easily. So just 10 minutes of touch can dramatically change a latch, can change the direction of a baby's health and life.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And in that vein, I know that I send people to you for all kinds of reasons, but with respect to the babies that you're working with, what are maybe the primary things that you see this work is able to address that maybe a lot of babies, most babies, all babies are struggling with?
Well, feeding issues is the number one thing. So if the latch is painful, if they're not transferring the milk, if baby's falling asleep at the breast, then digestive complaints are a big thing, reflux, constipation, baby's just kicking from gas all day long. Sleep can be a big issue, plagiocephaly or malformed head, and then torticollis where the head's pulling. Occasionally, someone will notice like the arm seems injured or the legs seem, not to be positioned right, or the
maybe
pelvis.
not symmetric or maybe not working quite the same way.
Yeah, sometimes you see a foot that's weird or something. And then some parents also just say, like, I feel like I had a traumatic birth. And, like, their intuitive sense is we need some help to recover from this. But breastfeeding is probably the biggest thing. More people are wanting to breastfeed and recognizing that, whoa, I've learned all the positions and I'm doing all the things and, like, it's still not working very well. And, like, is that, could this be the missing piece? And usually it is.
A lot of the times it is. So we can sort of follow the rules, but if baby can't get out of stuck positions, and there's no amount of, like, cute little sayings to get a baby positioned if they're not able to do it. It's really
if you can't open your jaw, if your tongue is restricted because the floor of the mouth is pulling, if your frontal bone is so compressed down into your facial bones that you can't move the mandible, it's going to be hard to breastfeed.
It's like, I like to say that it's sort of like sleeping poorly and having a sore neck and then trying to, like, merge on the freeway to the side that you're sore too. Like, just like you were saying, there's this idea that it's really only the worse off kids that need that support. But I think really anybody who's been in the womb for any period of time and then squeezed out or pulled out is going to need some of that
Which
support.
is why in a study of babies in India in 2 different states, 98% of babies receive bodywork within the first 3 days of life. Because there's a culture that didn't lose touch. They didn't have Victorianism, come in and just take away
Sterilize
all touch.
everything.
Yeah, we can't touch anybody because,
Ew.
And so they didn't lose it, and they know it should be done right away because babies aren't fragile things you should touch very gently. They actually need to unravel and open up from the uterus and the birth canal to be able to eat and thrive, and they they do a good job of it, and they've got a healthy.
Get them going.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're gonna live this life, you may as well start off on the right foot.
Yes.
Do you see babies of all ages? What is your take on when body work should start, or is there a point where it's too late to do this kind of work for babies?
Should start first 3 days, ideally, like they do in India, I believe, before milk comes in, because then you've opened everything up and you're going to have a better experience. If you can get to a baby before they're rolling at 6 months, it's really easy as the practitioner, and everything's still really malleable. But at any point, I work on kids who are slow to crawl, slow to walk, have issues all through toddler and elementary school and beyond. And it's really gratifying to help, a kid who's never naps and take their first nap, or, a kid who...
I'm sure mom really appreciates that.
Can't stand any touch because their nervous system is too, hyped up, and they can suddenly, receive hugs. Like, these are huge things that we can do with body work. So...
Are there any situations where body work is not considered okay or appropriate that you can think of, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I've done body work with kids with tubes and things still in them, and it's such gentle work that we work around it. We can work, you could technically work off the body as well. You can work on mom's body and help downregulate baby's body. So I don't think there's any situation where I'd go, ooh, no, I might be more gentle around an area if they've just had a tongue release, or, you're going to treat a newborn head with its soft spots very different than maybe the head of an older baby or kid. But essentially it's such gentle work that you can do it anytime, anywhere, in any situation, and you're not going to harm anyone.
I really liked what you said about being able to work on mom's body and her nervous system as a way to support baby. Is that something that you find you do often?
Often enough. I mean, sometimes I take up the whole hour session just working on baby. There's that much to do, but often in the second session, maybe we don't need all the time and I work on mom some, but occasionally if it seems like this is less of a body work on baby issue and more of mom still holding so much tension and so much fear and her nervous system's amped up from what she's gone through, baby's not going to get better if I don't do that. So, even spending 5 minutes, like just holding her body, touching her body, holding over her C-section scar, giving her an opportunity to cry and move some of that stuck emotion and observe her, then baby's going to benefit from that. And their nervous systems are mirroring each other, and their tension patterns are mirroring each other. So I do often also sometimes I will tell parents if they're coming back for multiple visits and they're not getting the results they want, that, okay, it's your turn on the table, because I'm really good at what I do. Your baby should have responded better by now, and you are the problem. So let's work on what's going on.
It makes me think about all the times you put me on the table after working on my kids.
Never.
I appreciate it more than you can possibly imagine. How many sessions would you say most babies need to get? So let's say we have a baby who isn't dealing with any extremes, right? There isn't really anything obvious or glaring, but can use a single session. And then for a baby who does have bigger issues or more long-term issues, does it just depend on the baby?
Depends on the baby and depends on the baby's environment. So a baby could release if they go back into a tense or tight environment, if they still, have maybe a tongue tie and they're developing, coping compensation patterns for that. Like, we might kind of 2 steps forward, one step back. But in general, it's hard to say up front. But I do see some babies that benefit from a handful of sessions, and maybe session 4 or 5, and you're like, wow, this head's still really tight, or there's still a lot of arching. And so there are some babies that seem to present with an abnormal amount of tension and takes longer to resolve. But I'd say also, in general, like, life presents stressors, and on my own kids, I like to do little tune-ups, every so often, or someone's not rolling one direction. And so we go in from a bodywork perspective, or, someone is, having some other symptom or not sleeping well or whatnot. So little tune-ups. I think bodywork is great at that. But every baby should have one session, and some families should be prepared for a handful of sessions.
Are there things that families can do between sessions to keep up with the work that you're doing, sort of as maintenance?
Yeah, I mean, I recommend taking a bath with your baby. I think that's a really great way to, like, float in the water and relax the nervous system using the Lavoie bath method. I think that massaging your baby is always going to be great, and encouraging parents to do the moderate pressure massage. So not just like gently rubbing oil, but really like sinking into the tissue, because that's what the research shows increases weight gain and oxygenation and gastric motility and everything. And then, I encourage moms to get support for themselves. So, instead of just focusing on baby, like focusing on what they need and how they can get more support or set better boundaries. And that's going to help their children to do better.
Amazing. Can I see you work on a baby?
Yes.
On a demo for us?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
So when I'm starting, I start by holding the sacrum, and I'm seeing if baby's lying on center or they're pulling forward or backward. So she, to start out, is pretty good. Her pelvis is nice and on center. I want to feel for equal tone in the feet. Feel how that leg is, making such cute sounds. And I'm just gently feeling into the fascia, or how the body wants to move. So with her, I'm kind of feeling up into the lower spine, the lumbar vertebra, playing her femur bone and how it fits into the hip joint. That feels so good. Yeah, mostly releasing along the spine right now. Kind of feeling for tension patterns that will pull her forward into a flexion or backwards into extension. So I'm just holding her sacrum and her spine. It's very, very gentle. We're not forcing anything or stretching anything, just following how the body wants to go. Yes, you're doing so well. Kind of noticing how she uses this arm differently than that arm. Looking at her face, there should be symmetry everywhere in a new baby. Their facial bones, their head bones, the way their arms and their legs move. So the biggest thing with her is just working out some of this extension in the spine. Yeah. So any tension in here is going to affect the related organs. So this would be affecting her digestive organs. So as we release that tension, it's going to help with that nerve flow into her digestive organs, just to optimize how she takes in food and nutrients. Just holding her sacroiliac joints, her diaphragm. You're doing very well. Very, very well. Ooh, look at that tongue. so good at this. Just holding her sacrum and her diaphragm. Yes, and I get a smile. Thank you. Thank you. Look at those cute little kicks. Feel into your feet here. Pulling the knees like a little bit inwards. So I'm just kind of seeing what's going on with how those legs sit in the pelvis to get a little bit more of what I call happy baby, where the knees are out and they're sitting really symmetrical, like in a little meditation posture. Oh, you're doing so well. I'm going to make my way up to the torso, to the brachial plexus. I'm going to check the tone in her hands, make sure they're equal. So they should both grip equally. Good. We want to see the chin go up towards the ceiling. Should go up a little bit more than that. Arms should move equally, which they do. This hand could grip a little more. It's a little bit weak, that tone. So we're going to just engage that side a little more. Good job. Good job. Oh, a little something. You feel your shoulder blades. Very nice. Okay, we're going to flip you around. Ooh. Gonna hold your head. And again, we're just feeling for if the body is pulling in any direction. We're not stretching or pushing or manipulating. So I'm just holding this area that is the occipital cortex and lobe. And we're just following her body. So well. You're doing so well.
Thank you, Lauren, for coming and sharing your brand of magic with us. If any of you want to check in with Lauren yourself or reach out to her, if you're a lactation consultant who would like to learn from her, or a parent who needs some guidance, all of her information is going to be in the show notes in the description of the video. And of course, you know where to find me. So yeah, see you soon.